As you can tell, I'm still behind the ball. I have not even put on my headphones yet. I'm doing that right now, or in-ears, or whatever you want to call them. Anyway, folks, we got a lot to talk about.
Oh, wow.
There is a lot happening. We watched President Zelensky, if that's what you want to call him, stripper Zelensky, whatever you want to say, do what may be one of the most idiotic, foolish things you could ever do. A day before they're supposed to go into talks, he does this crazy operation, which I do not regard as brilliant by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, come on. There are people who are saying that the Mossad opened up an office in Ukraine.
Okay, listen. Please do me a favor, and let's not insult the Israelis, and let's not insult the Mossad by calling this brilliant. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to conflate the actual military operation with the brilliance of the momentum that's created with or without the action. So let me give you an example of this, right?
Okay.
When Operation Grim Reaper took place, it was years in the planning, by far maybe the most brilliant maneuver I've probably ever seen in world history that I've ever heard about. But what was brilliant about it, besides the sheer brilliance of the operation in and of itself, was the brilliance in the timing and the effectiveness of what was put into cause. Within a month of the time that Operation Grim Reaper took place, Hezbollah was gone.
Yeah, it changed. It changed the momentum of the war on all the fronts, including the war with Iran and everything.
Everything. It was brilliant, and it actually polarized the people that needed to start coming together versus the people that needed to shun away. It was one of the most brilliant actions. It was done under the leadership of a man who completely understood what needed to be done. This was not that. This was timed in the worst possible time. It could have been the most brilliant military operation ever to be thought of. Yet, it was executed in a time that actually is going to just make things worse. You couldn't have done it at a worse time. The effects of it are going to be so outrageous, it's not even going to be funny. You don't sit down and infuriate somebody before you're about to go into good faith negotiations with them in order to end whatever may happen. And then let's actually consider for 1 second the loss that took place. It wasn't much.
No, it was not.
Russia could remanufacture that stuff literally in 2 days.
Well, there's an argument going on the web about if Russia can remanufacture most of the factory lines for at least 2 or 3 of their strategic bombers does not exist anymore.
Yeah, but look, with respect to the strategic bombers, we all know beyond a shadow of a doubt that their strategic bombers are, in essence, the least of their capacity to inflict destruction. There's a lot more going on right now that a lot of people aren't necessarily considering.
Okay, so
and
it's a strategic one for a reason, and the idea is just like B-2s for the United States are strategic bombers that usually are not used, but play a part in the how do you say, the political dance. But again, you're right. We're in the middle of a very complex political dance. And the actual damage wasn't much, but the media, I think, damage that Ukraine inflicted is something that we probably should be talking about because it's going to play a role in other things too.
Well, that's the issue that's at hand, is what he was trying to do in the media. But the problem is, even with what he was trying to do in the media, all he did for the most part is he further polarized the people that were moving him and leading him and guiding him. But the people that are anti-war hawk, the people that are looking at this and saying this is completely superfluous, we're on a completely different level.
Do we need to talk about what happened, or does everybody know?
No, we should talk about that for a second. But you know what? Before we do, I do want to do this really quickly. And we, as I mentioned before, all of the super chats and all of the super stickers we are going to read at the very end. we're going to have a Q&A, and we'll start the Q&A with all of the super chats and the super stickers, because we do want to acknowledge you guys, and we do love you, and we think it works out better when we wait until the end. And by the way, your generosity is amazing, you guys. So thank you for it, and please keep it coming. We always benefit greatly from it, and so we will read it. But there is one thing, speaking of generosity, that I think I need to do, and I know he's going to be mad. He's going to be really mad, by the way, that I mentioned this, but that's okay. Our brother, and he is a very, very dear brother. I'm going to say which one do I like more visible? I think these are all beautiful. Let me get one that's more visible because of the video. Our brother, Dean Elder, Warrior Tradition Fund, made these for us. Look, the camera doesn't do it justice, but these coasters are they are spectacularly beautiful. Spectacularly beautiful. So I wanted to start this by thanking Dean, because these are going to be everywhere. I'm using these everywhere. I love them. I think they're gorgeous. I don't know if Dean makes these for his organization and uses them to raise money, but I would pay a lot of money for these. These are beautiful. And by the way, this is not a brand deal. I don't have a brand deal with anybody. So I'm just saying this because the gift that he gave me is really beautiful. It's spectacular. And I really like them. I'm very attached to them. I got rid of all of them. All of my old ones, they're off in the corner. These are the ones that I have put out. They're the beauties. Now, with that said, can I go on a little bit of a rant as far as Dean is concerned?
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm kind of irritated.
Oh,
okay?
didn't.
And I hope the people at Meta could get their act together and figure out what their head from their rear is, because I think it's just completely ridiculous. How in the world is it that a guy like Dean can spend over 20 years in the military? More than that. The guy was a massive asset, and everything that he went through was used to be able to do what he's doing right now. Like, the prime of his work, of his life, is sitting right now in ministering to veterans.
Yeah.
He busts his rear to make a name for the ministry that he has, and he works super hard to do it. And I want the hundreds and thousands of people that are going to watch this on Facebook to hear this. And I want people listening to hear this. But he works his tail off completely, only for somebody to take his name, fabricate an account, use that account to raise money for themselves instead of his organization. And Dean does what he's supposed to do. He goes to Facebook and he tells Facebook, hey, this guy just did something he shouldn't be doing. This is me that he's imitating, and he's using my good name to rip people off. You know what Facebook does? Facebook says, no policies have been violated.
What?
Yeah. You mean to tell me a guy can take your name, represent to be you, steal money in your name, take advantage of you, and not get busted?
If I remember correctly, I started seeing a couple of years ago a lot of people who changed their social media identity to real Charlie Kirk, real this, real that.
Yeah.
For that reason, or is that part of that?
I think that's more of a stand in solidarity for the president, because that's what the president did. And I think it was more that. I could be wrong. But it's kind of ridiculous.
No, there's something wrong with this.
Anyway.
I mean, we both put a lot of time, energy, and effort into our names. Somebody, like, say, I don't want to give anybody ideas. No, I'm not even going to say it.
Yeah. It's just sad. It's sad. And we've had to talk about this, like, a lot.
So, Dean also put, I just now saw little coasters for Gijón Springs.
Oh, did he really?
Yes,
Where
he did.
I didn't see. Are they here?
Yeah, they're here.
Yeah, they're going to be beautiful. I guarantee
they
you.
are. So, from Gijon Springs and me, Dean. Thank you, really, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile mentioning all that as something that probably should be mentioned because his coasters are beautiful, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank him because he deserves it. But I am a little irritated with what Meta's doing, and I hope somebody at Meta hears this and actually gets it fixed.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there's a contact over there that I think we might be able to get a hold of to get it addressed, but it's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, but if people write to them and say this is wrong, also that adds another layer.
Dean, if maybe we could get the link over to us, and we'll put it in the chat here for people to go and report that as being fictitious. That would be very useful, I think. The more people report it as being fictitious, I think the more likely it'll be that will get removed. Because it's kind of ridiculous. So, anyway, why don't we start by talking about what happened?
Well, before we go, just some quick news. My mom's in a bomb shelter again. And by the way, we don't call it a bomb shelter. We call it a mamad, like it's a safe room. A lot of people don't understand that every house, every apartment, every establishment in Israel has a steel reinforced concrete iron door and metal windows structure that can take a direct bomb blast without collapsing. So what happens when the siren goes off, and by the way, now we've got, because the rockets are coming from Yemen, we've got an added on layer. So you get a text message to your phone that says the sirens are going to go off soon. Turn off get ready. And then the siren goes off, which means that there's a rocket that is in the air that might land on your vicinity, and they kind of figure out where that is going to be. And you're supposed to wait inside the safe room for 10 minutes. And basically, that's enough for either the rocket to make it through or to be intercepted and all the debris falls down without hurting anybody, because they're worried about interceptions where the debris. I mean, if the rocket has a trajectory and you blow it up in midair, that trajectory still continues.
Yeah, sure.
And some of that, the pieces of that rocket, which is as big as a bus, if you kind of think about it, okay, might fall on somebody's head. So we all go into safe rooms. So I think this is the fourth rocket this week. No, wait. The fourth rocket in the last week. So every couple of days they fire a rocket. Most of them are intercepted. As we know, one of them got through, and maybe we should talk about what that and how that kind of plays a role. Okay, and but as of now, but here's something else that just now came across the news. 2 rockets were fired from Syria onto the Golan Heights. That is a new development.
By Julani?
That's the question. We don't know right now who.
Or no way by the Kurds. It could be by the Kurds.
I doubt the Kurds, okay? And I doubt the Druze. So the only thing is pro-Palestinian factors or pro-Islamic factors inside Syria. Julani is going to say it's not him because he's been reaching out to Israel and to the United States lately. So he's going to say it's not him, but there are elements inside Syria who are trying to light the spark between Syria and Israel. The rockets fell in open spaces, and there were rockets because we do have reports that somebody heard the explosions, meaning it's not just a quirk in the rocket system. There actually was an explosion. They fell in open areas, didn't hurt anybody.
So
that was, by the way, live as we spoke.
Yeah, look, there's so much to say about so much of this. I would have to think, bro, that this is Syria already acting as a proxy for Turkey.
The news that has come down in the last week is that I call him Julani, but Ashara is the new name.
I don't even say that name. Yeah.
So El Julani has reached out to Israel and said we can be. He said security cooperative. We can do some security cooperation, meaning 2 things. First, he doesn't want to light up the border between us and Syria. He wants Israel to stay off his tail. And the question is how close he is and how much of this is Turkey. That's a good question. But Israel has made it very clear to him that if he keeps on attacking the Druze, both in the Damascus area and the Golan Heights area, Israel will have something to say about it. And the reason for that is because we have a large Jewish population that are actually family members of the guys in Syria.
Yeah.
So there's been a tit for tat between us and Giuliani, and in the end, it seemed to us like Giuliani has settled down, and there was talk about even joining the Abrahamic Accords.
Yeah, which we knew. The president actually told him that he wanted him to join the Abraham Accords. It was part of the agreement to lift the sanctions on Syria. And by the way, this is a temporary lift. This is only a 3-month lift. But the idea behind it is that they would join the Abraham Accords. Now, the hope in him doing that was by giving Syria the opportunity to join the Abraham Accords by lifting the sanctions lift, that it would motivate the coalition that he was building in the Gulf region states.
Okay, so here's the thing. We don't know who fired the rockets, but I actually heard one of the, read one of the commentators who's saying that if you are an Iranian/Palestinian, pro-Palestinian with assets in Syria, you would really like to shake up this growing closeness between the Syrians and the Israelis.
Undoubtedly.
And so somebody who has a mission, we saw that, by the way, in Lebanon. When we took out Hezbollah, Palestinian factions, Hamas factions in Lebanon went and fired off a couple of rockets at Israel.
Even Fatah, we know that.
Yeah.
We know.
So they're gonna say it was somebody trying to throw a wrench into the machinery of the Syrians getting closer to the Israelis. But it is something that hasn't happened in a couple of months. Literally right where, I mean, if any of you have been on top of Kofi Annan, Mount Bental, if you remember all the view over there, right? I mean, you would have seen it if we would have been on Mount Bental.
So that means that if that rocket was fired, it was fired by a Russian asset, because S-300s are what line up that area.
No, it wasn't. It was probably a Katyusha. I don't know if you know.
Katyusha. You think it was a Katyusha?
Yeah, I mean that's
because that whole area, that like near that little Golan Heights DMZ area, they had S-300s there for a while.
Well, first of all, we are in the DMZ. Everything that was a DMZ,
yeah, of course.
So if you figure out the picture that you saw looking on top of Mount Bental, you look down into Syria. The city of Quneitra that was down there. All of the city of Quneitra is in Israeli hands now.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
We're on the other side. What I'm trying to say is it was probably a medium-range Katyusha, and I don't know if you know, Katyusha is just a rocket that has propellant on one side, and you aim it by aiming the launcher like this. It doesn't have any actual aim. And the idea, again, is not to hit anything. If you do, you do. Wonderful. The people who are shooting it are all excited. But it's not going to hit. But the fact is they did set off the sirens. They did. And it's in the papers. And that is something that maybe that'll connect to what we're talking about, is how this war is being fought in a completely different way. Yeah,
that's actually going to be the subject of our show next week, because there's a lot. By the way, I should note this to everybody, and I'll mention it again tonight or when we're done at the end of the show. But David is going to be at my church Sunday night. And so I don't want you guys to miss out on that. It's going to be great. I think you guys are going to love it. If you want an opportunity to see him live, you'll be able to do it at Calvary Chapel Downey. I mean, Calvary Chapel Signal Hill. I don't know why I said Downey. My goodness, because, well, you know why.
My wife is on the floor right now.
Yeah, Signal Hill. Calvary Chapel Signal. Well, because we all came from Downey. That's
right
why.
Now, Christy's on the floor.
That's why we all came from Downey. So I think that if you guys are looking for an opportunity to be able to better understand what is behind this, why this is changing and how it's changing, that'll be our conversation next week. And it's going to be a good conversation, by the way.
What I would like to do, and I'm on the process of putting together a clip on this, is making the connection between the change in military technology and military tactics, the impact of social media, okay, and how those interact or how those overlap with each other, and the political result that comes out of this.
Yep.
Classic example, okay? We just now saw it here. Somebody sitting in a basement somewhere in southern Syria decides to fire 2 rockets off at Israel. A rocket is a tube, probably about 5-6 feet long and about I don't know what's this, about 30 millimeters wide, and that is enough to get into the news. That gets into the news, then the Israeli government has to retaliate or respond. That starts off with a response in Syria. So some idiot sitting with the rocket launcher in his basement, not even the government of the country or anything like that, can actually change the political situation.
Oh, sure.
And that is one tiny little event, because we're sitting here in Los Angeles talking about it. That's what Hamas tried to do in the 7th of October. Okay, that's what the Houthis tried to do. I mean, and we're seeing a new interaction between the new, and I think that's part of what happened in Russia, between new technologies, social media, and the political situation. So tie that together. We'll be talking about that a little bit more.
Yep, that's right. Yep, that's right. I think. Well, look, we should probably take it a step further.
Okay.
Well, you know what? We'll save that for next week.
Okay.
Because
I'll give one more teaser.
Yeah. Please.
One more teaser in connection to this. Israel published officially this week that we have used the laser system to intercept actual drones that came in from Lebanon, meaning there have been successful drone interceptions by a a ground-based laser system in Israel. And they published some movies where they've put that laser system in aircraft. Now, if you're following where I'm going with this, drone warfare, missile warfare has given an advantage, but laser systems will take that advantage back off the table.
Yep.
And we're going to see how that interacts, and that's what we're going to be kind of going into a little bit deeper next week.
Yeah. There's so much to say about that. There's just so much to say about it. Okay. Let's talk about what happened in Russia.
Ooh.
Because that's a very important conversation, and that's
on
essence,
a lot of different levels,
yep.
and it segues into what we're talking about right now. Explanation. Do we want to get into the details of what we think happened technically and see how we want to go with that?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
So first of all, this is something that's been planned for a while, and according to what I've picked up from the Israeli, I'm going to say the one level above the regular news. There's a couple of websites that kind of deal with this. It is something that Israel has been worried about, thinking about, dealing with lately. Is that the Ukrainians managed to load drones, small, what do you call them, quadcopters? 4 propeller drones, something like 20 or 30 of them in the back of a truck. They managed to smuggle that truck into Russia somehow. And at a coordinated spot, the truck opened up the roof. They said that they used 117 drones, flew out of the truck, and attacked different military facilities in Russia. Some of them close to the border, not far from Moscow. At least one of the air bases that was attacked was on the border with Mongolia. I mean, all the way on the other side of Russia. And one of the facilities that was attacked was a nuclear submarine base in the northern part of wherever, I'm not sure, Murmansk, Minsk, I don't know the names. But what I'm trying to say is not very, very close, meaning those trucks made a major amount of travel inside Russia, and then they pressed a button. Each of the drones was remotely piloted. And because they were set off so close to the actual targets, anti-drone, anti-aircraft, anti-air facilities didn't have any time to react. They hit, according to the Ukrainians, about 30% of Russia's tactical aircraft. I'm probably not going to buy that. They probably hit a couple of aircraft. They probably hit a couple of aircraft, maybe. We're not sure if they kind of disabled or damaged, but and again, we're back to the fact that it doesn't matter what they actually did. What matters is what is being said right now, and the fact that we're talking about it here in Los Angeles. So those are more or less the details of what we know happened from a tactical military point of view.
Yep.
Do you know anything else that I don't know about that one?
No, that's pretty much an accurate description of what we know.
I've got a couple of technical problems, and I thought I was going to ask you because you've done remote controlled helicopters and remote controlled stuff.
Yep.
Isn't there a way to block the frequencies?
Yes.
I mean, why isn't that being done, or how isn't that being done?
Well, first of all, the one thing that we need to note here, and it's pretty critical that it get noted, is that we are not talking about the type of drone technology, military drone technology, that is similar to that of the type of stuff that we fly on a regular basis in our hobby. Okay? There's no way you can put something like this within a truck, pop open the lid of the truck, and then these things fly out and go do what they're going to do. It's a lot more sophisticated than that.
Okay.
We're not talking about Club Ks, which, by the way, are a very sophisticated tool that the Russians use that probably, in my opinion, may be the one most feared by virtually everybody. And I'll just put up a quick picture of this so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. These are the Club K systems that the Russians use, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll notice in this system, what ends up happening is they actually put these in boxcars.
Yep.
And they can be remotely controlled anywhere in the world by satellite. There are hundreds and thousands of these all over the world that Russia has at their fingertips that they can actually deploy. This is not what we're talking about.
You're talking about facilities or how do you say, weapons like that, let's say in Germany and in France?
Everywhere. Russia has them everywhere and nobody knows where they are. They're in
Ooh.
boxcars.
Ooh.
Russia, if Russia wanted to, it could inflict the kind of harm that nobody can even begin to imagine. Because my understanding is in some of these, there are technologies that could do so much damage that there would be no hope for whatever it was targeting by the time it got to the point where it was. There'd be no time for anybody to take shelter. There'd be no, so it would do insane damage because of their proximities. What Ukraine did had to have been something that was a lot less sophisticated than actually being projected. It had to have been something that would have been more along the lines of what you're seeing Iran doing right now and what you're seeing some of these other countries that are leaning into drone technology. The only thing that I would say that is different, at least in this context, is if it was as they are describing. Let's just say they drove trucks over, they put them all in different areas, and these things popped out of these trucks. Now we're talking about not Ukrainian technology. Now we're talking about NATO technology. So this would have been assisted by NATO.
So something would have had to connect that drone to a satellite in order to connect it to the controller.
And Ukraine doesn't have access to that.
Well, if I remember correctly, Ukraine's web YouTube system was Starlink.
Yeah, that's right.
If I remember that, that was Starlink is Elon Musk's satellite.
Yeah, and I doubt, I have to be very careful how I say this, I doubt that Starlink would be utilized directly or indirectly for something like this. Because I cannot imagine that Elon Musk would put at risk the standing that he has with respect to his contracts and Starlink to just aid something in a causeless war.
So these drones had to be controlled by somebody in Ukraine. Do you think that they're lying and the drones were controlled by operators inside Russia?
I believe they were controlled by operators inside Russia. And if they weren't controlled by operators inside Russia, then what we're looking at is we are looking at drones that were pre-programmed and pre-positioned in those trucks and actually were launched based on AI tools put in them, and they transmitted data as they were doing what they were doing, which is a distinct possibility because that would be the least risk involved. Now, that would be the most sophisticated.
So you're talking about an independent drone that gets up into the air, has
Programmed
been
via
programmed
AI.
programmed to go to a GPS position, and programmed to seek out the shape of a military plane on a tarmac.
Probably not even utilizing GPS. My guess is it's AI being programmed with the coordinates that it's going to be planted at. And then the AI does what a normal pilot would do. I'm at these coordinates. I'm going to these coordinates.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's
but
utilizing
then how does it know how to attack the fire truck and or the plane and not the fire truck?
It's blind. When I say it's blind, meaning the AI is able to discern what the image is. It knows
a plane
that's
from
a plane,
tarmac.
That's a fire truck. That's a person.
Yeah. So it goes out of the truck, gets a little bit of altitude, has to be close enough to pick up the airport, flies towards the airport, sees a plane, basically
takes evasive maneuvers, all of that, and accomplishes its mission.
So that is scary.
So think about it like this. These are not RF controlled. Okay? These are
RF is
meaning radio frequency. Yeah. They're not radio frequency controlled. Once they launch, they're done. They're controlled by the AI that's put in them.
That's what we used to call in the military fire and forget.
It's a fire and forget device. Now, the reason why this becomes so dangerous is because they become almost, for lack of a better term, invincible to many of the countermeasures that exist to prevent that from happening. Like, for example, Israel brilliantly did this, and it worked for a long time. Any coordinates above Tel Aviv, their satellite interceptors, were basically telling it, go to Lebanon, go to Beirut, go to Tehran.
Well,
right?
I've seen that in work. I mean, I know somebody who tried to fly a drone over the old city of Jerusalem once. And I was there when I told him not to do it, by the way.
Yeah.
And flew it out of the balcony of a hotel in Jerusalem, and flew the drone over the old city of Jerusalem. The old city is inside the city walls, and the drone was hijacked by somebody we don't know, and he lost control of the drone. The drone didn't fall. It was literally hacked into and hijacked by Israeli forces, and they took over the drone.
Well, I don't know if you remember this, David, but we were in Tel Aviv together, actually in Netanya. We were in Netanya together in 2016. Yeah, 2016. We're in Netanya together, and I bring my multi-rotor. No, it may have been 2014.
Well,
no, it was 2014, actually.
I was slim and handsome back then.
Yeah, so 2014, we're in Netanya. That was the year that my mom passed away. So yeah, I think it was that year. And if you remember, I bought a multi-rotor up there. And I actually flew it
in
Netanya over the water. Everything seemed to go good, and then all of a sudden it fell out of the sky. By the way, that was a $3,000 multi-rotor.
Well, I was kind of sad when my $80 drone committed suicide over the Sea of Galilee once.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then when I turned it into the manufacturer to analyze it and get it repaired or whatever, they said, we're not charging you for anything. We're completely repairing the whole thing. We just don't know what happened. It's almost as though something hit it and told it to shut down.
So there are technologies out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Israel did it.
Think about the lasers. Think about the lasers, because lasers can take out, if the laser is strong enough, can take out multiple targets almost simultaneously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you've ever seen how a laser traces a line, that means the laser is aiming at different spots faster than the eye can see.
Yep.
So if you have 50 drones in the air and they are spotted by the system, a laser can take them out, what would seem like simultaneously.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, I think that's kind of what bringing us back to the Russia thing. I'm still not convinced that it was done through radio frequency. If it was, let me at least say this: if it was done through radio frequency, I guarantee you NATO's involved.
Besides all the rest of the things that we've been talking about, doesn't this, how do you say, doesn't this illustrate a huge hole in KGB or Russian intelligence?
Maybe not. Look, dude, there's so much to say about this. So the KGB. Let's not even talk about the KGB.
I don't think they call it.
Let's just talk about the Russian Federation. We'll just use the appropriate terms. The Russian Federation are masters, absolute masters at understanding that a concerted attack is coming their way and allowing it to happen in order to create a propagandized tool to retaliate.
So we're going layers on layers. We're going into 3D chess.
I am certain that some of this had to have been a little bit of that. The thing that I want everybody to notice, because this is really important, is that Russia has said very little about this.
Yes, that's true.
And the one thing that everybody needs to understand when I talk about that is super consequential that Russia has said very little bit about it. Why? Because don't let anybody think that Putin is as stupid as Zelensky. Putin is so unbelievably disciplined in how he chooses to retaliate. He's not a dumb man. He's disciplined. He's not going to cause the invocation of Article 5 like many people want it to happen. You see what I'm saying? It just doesn't work that way. Let me read to you Russia's statement. Okay? Because the statement is nothing. It's really a big nothing. They say this: military airfields across Russia have been attacked in a series of kamikaze drone strikes. The country's defense ministry reported on Sunday, blaming the incidents on Kiev. Most of the strikes were successfully repelled, with some resulting in material damage. Airfields were targeted. This is Russia's statement, okay? Airfields were targeted in the Murmansk region, in the country's north, in Ivanovo and Ryazan regions in central Russia, as well as the Irkutsk region in Siberia and Amur region in the Far East. All the attacks employed first-person view kamikaze drones, with some of them being launched from territories in close proximity to the airfields. Some of the culprits behind the attacks have been detained without revealing the number of those arrested. The Russian military also said the Kiev regime was ultimately responsible for strikes, which they described as terrorist attacks. And as a matter of fact, I'm curious to know if I can actually find there's another official statement that they just released that I was told. Let me see if I can find their official statement here.
You think the Russians let this happen? That's what we're kind of contemplating.
I think to a certain degree they had to have let it happen. To a certain degree they had to have let it happen.
Interesting. Okay.
There's just no way in the world that you can forge it any other way. The United States, by the way, very strategically disavowed all of it. Completely, to the point where Donald Trump was pretty angry in the sense that he basically said they were not notified at all.
Interesting.
They had no idea in advance that this was coming. Here's the statement. Okay? Ukraine did not notify the Trump administration of the attack in advance. That's a Ukrainian official saying this.
Mm-hmm.
A U.S. official also told reporters the Trump administration was not made aware of the attack. This morning in the press conference, in the press debrief, the White House press brief, Caroline Leavitt said, no, the president didn't know. And she was pretty upset when she said it. You could tell she was just very quick with it. Okay? Zelensky goes to X and calls it an absolutely brilliant result, which shows the kind of monkey that stripper really is. Okay?
He's the only one that calls him a stripper, as far as I know.
Yeah. Well, he is. But that's what he is. He calls it a result achieved solely by Ukraine. 1 year, 6 months, and 9 days from the start of planning to effective execution. Like, Zelensky is a monkey. Which, by the way, just to show you the brilliance of the Russians, at least in this context, the next day they're scheduled to go to talks.
Yeah, but the talks have already taken place, and I think they lasted for an hour.
Yeah, watch this. Ukraine comes up empty-handed, not bringing any requirement for any type of a ceasefire, while Russia actually does come up with a requirement for ceasefire.
Okay.
And in their statement, what they actually ask for, let me see if I can find it here. They ask for two things, okay? And I'll actually I'll just reword it in my own words. They ask for two things. They ask for Ukrainian forces to back away as part of the ceasefire, and only one other thing, that Ukraine hold an election. And Russia says if those two things are done, there'll be a ceasefire. Does anybody understand the literal brilliance of Putin saying this is my requirement?
This is Putin hasn't been elected for how long?
But forget all of those arguments. Think of the brilliance of the demand that Putin is making.
Well, he's making a demand that will not be fulfilled.
He knows beyond the shadow of a doubt. Look, who's he trying to protect right now in Ukraine? He's trying to protect ethnic Russians. He is.
Okay.
That's his whole goal is to protect ethnic Russians and, of course, to be able to create a security mechanism that will stand up to any potential Article 5 claim made against Russia.
Yeah, but if Ukraine doesn't join NATO, why is that an issue?
It's an issue because NATO is using Ukraine as the proxy to position itself against Russia. So Russia no longer has security.
So you think this has been a NATO strike and the whole fight has been NATO?
I
thought NATO were...
We pushed Russia into this based on the NATO picture.
Okay.
And by the way, at the same time that the NATO issue was happening, there was a concerted attack or concerted effort being made, led by Zelensky and his people, to destroy the lives of ethnic Russians in Ukraine. That's a massive population of people.
It is.
But that was their tactic because it's the only way that they could get their head back around Crimea. Crimea was gone. It's been gone for a long time, just like Georgia. There's no chance anybody's getting that back. Russia took it, and there's no way to get that back. But the reason why Russia took it, and there's a lot of reasons why Russia took it, but
okay,
let's just go back to say that if Crimea and Georgia and any of these other people had to elect some kind of a local government, let's say you go to Crimea, you say you have an opportunity to be your own country, your own state, elect a government. They're all going back to Russia because they're all Russian sympathizers. They're mostly ethnic Russians.
They were all part of the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
originally.
let's not get into the Donetsk region because you start messing around with the overall picture there. It's something a whole lot more.
We all know who the most famous Russian from Georgia was, too. Stalin.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a whole other. But my whole point behind all of this is, okay, and I think this is like really, really important. You have to stop for one moment and think through what the end game is. Russia has a very clear picture of what the end game needs to be.
Okay, so
Ukraine doesn't.
So let's say, what do you think is the end game in Russia and Ukraine
Well,
right now, in the situation that we have on the ground?
The end game for Ukraine was never an end game. The end game was to do whatever the Western leaders that ruled you told you to do. So if you really think about it, the end game with Ukraine and Russia was for the United States to take advantage of an opportunity to win a proxy war. That's what that was all about.
So
That's why this is all backfired, because President Trump comes in and he says, I want nothing to do with this.
Yep.
That's why he keeps saying this is Biden's war and this isn't my war. He doesn't say it's Biden's war because Biden was the guy who wasn't strong enough and allowed it to happen. He's saying it's Biden's war because all the people that were running Biden pretty much created this war. And people like, and I'll just say it, people like Lindsey Graham created this.
Okay, so the question, though, right, what I'm trying to say is, right now, here, in this world that we're living in, what is the final resolution of this war? I mean, what can happen between Russia and Ukraine?
If Ukraine does not submit to the terms that are being proposed by the envoys that are trying to end this war, they won't have a country.
You think Russia's going to
Russia will just
conquer all of Ukraine?
And no one's going to do anything about it.
Ooh, that's very interesting. And again, I can't help but throw in the Israeli element into this.
Yep.
Okay, because Israel is in the process of conquering Gaza right now, and maybe we need to go talk about that. We're conquering right now. We're reconquering Gaza in a way that we didn't do before.
Yep.
So, what would happen if Israel conquered Gaza? What would happen if Russia conquered Ukraine?
I think both their relationships would be strengthened. I think
You think the world's going to let Israel conquer Gaza?
I think that what's going to end up happening is Israel and Russia will find a little bit more common ground than they thought they had, and will actually start working closer with one another, potentially.
Okay, because my question is, President Macron, for instance, is
An idiot.
Well, he got.
That was awesome, though. Did you see that wife slapped him?
I was going to say another word, but okay.
Yeah.
I was kind of worried about saying
That was
but
crazy.
She did.
You know what President Trump's advice was when he saw that happen? Because he got asked, hey, what do you think about Macron getting slapped? He said, I think you should close the door.
Did you hear what Elon Musk said?
No.
What? Because Elon Musk was in the White House and he had something that looked like a black eye, and he says, what happened? And he says, well, so, it was an accident, but don't worry, I was nowhere near France.
Oh.
Yeah, we're all laughing at by the way, I can't help it. I mean, France, it was a great country. Napoleon conquered most of Europe. I mean, France has a great tradition. I mean, the art, the food.
Not anymore. They're done.
But it's like they've turned into a laughingstock.
Yeah, no, listen,
Are
all of Europe has fallen, bro.
Have you followed what's going on in Paris?
Oh, it's terrible.
I mean, there's pogroms and there's I mean, they're burning neighborhoods in Paris.
Yeah,
they've lost control of their Muslim population. The Muslim population is doing what the Muslims like to do, and that is take power. And take power in every way. And again, they're going to take power in every way possible until somebody more powerful than him puts them down. By the way, that's the Muslim way.
I mean, this is, look, so many of these things are in common. Like, okay, look at what I'm reading right now. Let me just divert for 1 second. Can I just show you how stupid Zelensky is?
Okay.
He's a moron.
What did he say now?
Look at the statement that he just made. Zelensky calls meetings with Putin meaningless and asks for more military aid instead.
No, he's saying, I'm going to stand up to the Russians.
But you're a fool. I don't care how much you hate the Russians. You're a fool. You're a fool. There is no world in existence. There's no world that I know There's no way in existence Russia gets defeated by Ukraine.
But here's the problem. Ukraine is putting Russia into a point where they're going to have to conquer Ukraine, all of Ukraine.
That's right. That's my point. My point is, Zelensky, you moron, you're feeding people into the meat grinder. If you really, truly care about your country, sit down and talk.
Well, he tried, and he didn't dress accordingly.
Yeah, but no. He's never sat down and tried to talk with Putin. We had some opportunities early on, but then Boris Johnson screwed that one up.
Yeah, but he came down, sat down and talked with Trump, and Trump told him sit down and talk, and he kind of walked away on that
but again, that's the point. The point is he was probably coached in doing that, and also it's like he wasn't using his head. I mean, Zelensky pretty much is Zelensky. Let me give you some advice, okay? Put away the stripper mindset. Humble yourself. Put on a suit. Be respectful, sit down, and have a real conversation. You might hate him till you're blue in the face, but your people are dying every day. So sit down and have a conversation. I don't understand why this is such a hard thing for people to understand.
I'm trying to figure out how this is going to play out. And the reason and I'm curious about it because there are some things that are similar and some things that are not with the whole situation in Gaza. By the way, do we want to talk about what's going on in Gaza right now and tie that together? Or what's going on?
No, we should. Yeah, that's fine. I'm looking at a new report here right now at.
Here's the problem. You're looking at the news coming through. Yep. And the question is, who do you listen to? Who do you accept the news from? How do you know what you're watching is true?
Right.
And I think maybe this is a whole different kind of story. I think it was Douglas Murray that was kind of saying something about the BBC, that once the BBC were considered journalists, were considered respectable journalists, and at some point getting the news out became less important than getting likes, than getting supported.
Yep.
And what he was saying is that the problem with the BBC is not the fact that they are not journalists anymore, is the fact that they, in order to do what they need to do, they try reading the British public, and they believe that they are conveying what the British public wants to listen to.
Yeah, sure.
And we are
not wrong.
seeing the same thing happening in our media. Okay, CNN at some point quit being a journalistic establishment and started saying, okay, let's look at what the public wants to hear.
Yep.
What's going to get us more likes, and the more likes we get, the more publicity we can kind of sell, and they turn from this kind of establishment to a likes. And here's the thing: social media. That is the concept of all the social media. It's all about the likes. It's all about people who push the button for us. People who actually say, we like what you're saying. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not completely blaming the media. I'm not completely blaming. I'm blaming the fact that we live in societies that want to hear that Israel has fallen, that want to hear wokeness, that want to hear God is not a part, that want to hear the family is not important. This is a society that CNN and other medias have plugged into, and the social media. The thing is this: we thought that most of the people were that. The media thought that most of the people were that, and the Trump election proved them wrong. Proved that there were still enough people in Western society that do not buy into these values. So we're actually all wearing pride flags. By the way, aren't we in Pride Month this month?
It's ridiculous.
We're all supposed to be wearing pride flags, but it turns out that the people who are proud make a lot of noise, but the people who are not and don't like maybe don't make so much noise, but there's more of the unproud than there is of the proud. And we're forgetting this.
Well, with the whole Pride Month thing, and this year I'm actually going to tackle it a lot more aggressively than I have in the past, because okay, you're a city council person, and maybe I talk about the city of Signal Hill for a second, because not all city council members in Signal Hill think this way, but there are some that do. You're a city council person, and you are proud in the fact that you're gay, and you're also proud in the fact that every now and again you're mentally ill enough to put on a dress, even though you're a man. And somehow you think that as a leader of the city, it's okay for you to force the whole city to accept your delusions by, on city flagpoles, putting up a pride flag.
I think the city of Portland, Oregon just now passed an agreement that they will use the city flagpoles for the gay flag.
That's what the city of Signal Hill did a few years ago. And I'm not done with that. I'm not done with it because I think it's delusional. And I would continue to call upon the Trump administration and many other people to take funding away from cities that do this. Because what you're doing is you're alienating a whole group of people while elevating another.
Is the city of Signal Hill funded by federal funding?
All cities receive federal funding.
Okay.
All cities do. And one of the conditions we know now for receiving federal funding is that you don't do the kind of nonsense that Signal Hill's doing right now. But Signal Hill, look, let's just be real about some things. I have a great relationship with people in our city, and I think we've got some really wonderful people that are leading. But our city has had more discrimination lawsuits bent against it than you can possibly imagine. And here they are, once again, choosing to discriminate by elevating one people group over another. That's what they do. And look, if you take any bit of the premise that drives any of this stuff, it goes back to satanic inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, if you want me to help prove my point with this whole thing with what took place with Russia, okay? This is the talks that came back. Okay? Dmitry Medvedev was the one who I think was the higher level person that Russia had sent over there. Okay? Here's his quote. The Istanbul talks are not for striking a compromise peace on someone else's delusional terms, but for ensuring our swift victory and the complete destruction of the neo-Nazi regime. Here's his next quote. That's what the Russian memorandum published yesterday is all about. In reference to the set of demands presented, the Monday Istanbul talks lasted a mere 1 hour, but resulted in agreement for another swap of 1,000 POWs and the return of 6,000 deceased bodies from the battlefield. One key thing that Medvedev also addressed is the coming reprisal for Sunday's Operation Spiderweb, which saw Ukraine penetration deep inside Russia with drone strikes on 5 Russian air bases. Look at what Medvedev added. He added, in an apparent response to Ukraine's weekend strikes on Russian strategic bomber bases, that Moscow would take revenge. Retribution is inevitable. Look at his quote. Our army is pushing forward and will continue to advance. Everything that needs to be blown up will be blown up, and those who must be eliminated will be. You think for 1 second he's playing around when he makes a statement like that?
No. Totally not.
And you know what's really crazy? How are you going to invoke Article 5 by that? You're not.
Nobody's going to invoke. How does Article 5 mix into this? I don't see
No
Article
way.
5.
Well, I'm telling you, Zelensky thinks somehow, some way, he's going to invoke some type of Article 5 kind of response.
Even after what he got smacked at in the White House, he's still believing that
I believe
Article 5 is going to
Yes.
be...
Because the neocons, like Lindsey Graham, continue to help him to feel empowered.
No, I think what I watched happen in the White House, Zelensky doesn't come out of that feeling empowered.
I know.
That's weird. Oh, can we change subjects?
Yeah, we can change subjects, but I'm telling you, on this Russian thing, more on this Russian thing to come.
We will.
More on this Russian thing to come. Let me see here. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Looking at Zelensky's statements but see, that's my point. Zelensky is a terrible, terrible human being. That's crazy. I do love the last statement of this article. It says, of course, this is highly dangerous, and Putin has never been one to blink first, but is likely to unleash painful retaliation on Ukraine, including the likelihood of bombs away on the capital. Guaranteed he's going to destroy Kiev over this. Meanwhile, there's been uncharacteristic silence out of the White House. Trump has indicated that he is still open to the possibility of an in-person meeting involving both Zelensky and Putin at the same table, but this scenario is slipping away by the day as the war tempo picks up pace. So in other words, what Trump is going to basically say is, go kill each other. And if that happens, Ukraine is on fire and Russia's in it.
So what do you think is going to happen this week? Because we got to wrap this up.
I think you're going to see hell and fury come down on Ukraine. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but I think it's going to happen within the next few days, maybe the next few weeks. Putin is not one to just overreact and all of a sudden just retaliate. Putin thinks about everything that he does.
So what do you think Europe is going to do watching this happen?
If Europe knows what's best for itself, Europe is going to do nothing.
What do you think they're going to do?
I think they're going to do nothing. I think they're going to focus on tariff talks with the president. I think they're going to try to lick their wounds as they're trying to recover
Condemning
from
Israel.
They'll be busy doing that kind of nonsense. But I don't think they're going to touch this Russia-Ukraine thing.
Okay.
I think after what Zelensky did, there's no way. You can't get this close to peace only to watch a guy on the other side try to burn it down. Think about it like this, David. If you come to me and you say, this guy like took a wall down on my house, and you know him, can you please give me help to rebuild my house? And I need you to help me calm this guy down. So I say, okay, here's money. Go rebuild your house. I'll go talk to this guy. So on my way to go talk to that guy, you walk to that guy's house and you kill his baby. What am I going to do?
No.
Am I going to go to him and say, hey, you know what?
No,
Stop doing what you're doing. No, I'm going to back off. I'm going to go kill each other.
Ukraine thinks that they can win this.
And they can't. There's no way. He's delusional. He's delusional.
Okay.
They look, just observe Russia from the very beginning.
That's interesting. We spent a whole period here. We haven't said anything about Israel.
So let's talk about that next.
But
Go ahead.
there is a whole dynamic actually going on.
Yep.
We don't have a lot of time here because we got to kind of connect a few more things. But here's what's going on right now in Gaza. Witkoff came in with a temporary ceasefire kind of agreement basically 60 days or 70 days of ceasefire in return for some of the hostages, half the hostages that are still alive, half the hostages that are not. And basically, Israel said okay, and Hamas said no. And the main reason they said no, according to what we understand, was because it doesn't. It's not conditioned on completely stopping the war in Gaza, and it's not conditioned on allowing Hamas to survive and to rebuild. And basically, they're not willing to agree to anything that doesn't allow them to survive and rebuild.
Yep.
And Israel is not willing to agree to anything that doesn't finish off the threat of Hamas in any kind of future situation.
Right.
In the meantime, the world is going all crazy about the humanitarian aid, basically the food being allowed into Gaza, because the Palestinian narrative has been pushing out the starvation in Gaza as a major issue.
Yep.
And what Israel did is, well, when we tried to push food in the past, the Hamas used the food to control the people in Gaza, sold the food to the people in Gaza, and used the proceeds to rearm. Israel said, okay, we're going to push food into Gaza, but this time we're going to distribute it. And they put together, in the areas that are under Israeli control, massive, I think 3 right now, but they're talking about 8 altogether, massive distribution areas where they control the crowds. That was the whole idea, where they handed out food for free, meaning not making the people in Gaza pay for it.
Right.
And they were handing out the food for free, and this started the uprise or the outrage by the people of Gaza against Hamas.
Yep.
Meaning they were saying to Hamas, you're charging us for food. Look at the Israelis and the Americans are giving us food for free. And they actually looted a Hamas warehouse in order to get food out of that. And then Hamas tried to pull off another, maneuver, and shot some of the people that were on the way to pick up the food, and then blamed Israel for shooting the people.
So crazy.
Very quickly, it was, by the way, it was amazing to see how quickly the Western media blamed Israel for shooting people for coming to get food.
It's so angering.
I mean, we've put together these we put together this. What interest does Israel have to shoot the people coming to get the food?
Zero.
But here's the thing. We know who has an interest not allowing them. And Hamas actually said that they would rather the people starve than take food from the Israelis. And that's part of the dynamic that everybody is talking about. So now I think Hamas is realizing that the food is going to get to the people. Israel is organized to feed 500,000 meals a day.
Right.
That means you feed enough food for all of Hamas, okay, all of Gaza in 4 days,
Right.
2 million people. And basically, Hamas is seeing that as a threat. One of the conditions for them, one of the reasons they did not agree to the ceasefire, the wood-cloth ceasefire, is they wanted to condition it that Israel stops handing out the food, and the food gets handed out by the United Nations.
Yeah.
Meaning the Hamas sees Israel giving food to the people in Gaza directly as a threat. And that is what we're trying to. They're willing to kill their own people. They're willing to starve their own people.
Make that last statement again about the threat.
Okay.
Because, guys, I want you to listen to what he's saying, and I'm going to tell you why it's brilliant. Because I've never heard it put this way. And I think we need to push this.
The Hamas sees that Israel feeding the people in Gaza directly without making them pay. They see that as the threat to their legitimacy and their leadership.
Okay. That's so good. That is just so smart on so many levels, because I just want to run with that. Because that look, Hamas is a death cult.
Yep.
Everybody mistakenly says that what Hamas does is uses children as body shields, but they don't. They actually go further than that. They love sacrificing children. They love killing their people. That's what they do. Their goal is to kill as many of their own people as possible. And if they're children, it's better. Why? Because of the media perception.
Yep.
They want people to think that Israel is the big bad guy that doesn't care about them. And they want people to think that Israel is no good for giving anybody food because they created the problem that required them to have food in the first place. So of course they're like going nuts over this. That's a brilliant assertion.
So what is going to happen?
We should coin that, man. Like we should put that. You should take that phrase and go buy billboards everywhere and put that phrase up there. It's so true.
But we've known this. Why doesn't the rest of the world see this?
I'm fearful of the fact when I say this is that the more obvious thing still, the more obvious. Do you want more?
No.
The more obvious that this becomes, the more blind people are going to be because of what the Bible tells us. I mean, I have no other way of explaining it other than it's spiritual.
I still think they're going to agree at the end. I still think that they're going to be pushed into a corner where they're going to take the better of all of the. I mean, their situation is deteriorating. Hamas situation is
Well, did
deteriorating.
you see the statement that Witkoff put up?
He chastised them.
Oh, he just said that basically their proposal on their side of the deal is unacceptable.
Yep.
And good for Witkoff. I think Witkoff's big problem, forgive me for saying this, is that he's been generally naive about the mindset of Islam in the Middle East.
Yep. And here's part of the thing, and I don't think the problem is, and I heard Dr. Mordechai Kedar, I don't know if you've ever heard that name.
Oh, yeah.
Say something that what is not in the agreement with Witkoff, and that's why the Hamas cannot agree to it, is how do they get their pride back?
Yep, that's
how
right.
to get their honor back.
Yep.
And in a Middle East culture, and what a lot of people don't really understand, and this will connect to the negotiation between the United States and Iran, is it pride and honor, face, what we call in the world, is as important as economics in this part of the world.
Yep.
By the way, even as important as life. And that connects to what you talked about before. Okay?
And we all know the answer to that.
Yeah. It's a death cult. Well, the thing is that life is something to be used in the battles that you fight against who you think are your enemies. So the life of their children is not important. The well-being, the economics are not important. On the personal level, yes. Okay, look at the Hamas representatives in Dubai living it up very, very well. Okay, but the lives of the people in Gaza are not important, and they are willing to sacrifice those lives in the name of their jihad.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000% correct. You're 1,000% correct. And I mean, باسم Allah, باسم jihad. The reason why that's an important point to bring up. Well, you know what? There's a great way to demonstrate this. You'll probably remember this. You may not, because you may have not been tied to the program at the time that it was going on. But during 9/11, the U.S. Air Marshal program that became very much front and center started going to Israel for training. And I'm sure you could probably assume why.
Yeah, well,
there's a reason.
I did the training.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you know. So here's the one thing.
I didn't train the Americans. I'm saying I went through Israeli Air Marshal training.
Yeah, of course you have to. But the thing that, and maybe I'll let you talk about it a little bit, but the premise behind the training of Israeli air marshals is completely predicated upon something different. When we train law enforcement here, we train law enforcement with the mindset that the tools of coercion, for lack of a better term, the tools of compliance that we utilize are fundamentally predicated upon the idea that the person that we're dealing with generally wants to live.
Yep.
So when you hold somebody at gunpoint, they comply. When you inflict pain, they comply. When you stun them with the stun gun, they comply. That was the basic premise that all of our air marshals assumed prior to 9/11. What they didn't realize was if you're a Muslim, dying is the greatest honor in the commission of your evil that you could possibly ever obtain. And your training, the training you've gone through, the training that you've given, functions completely differently.
I'm going to go military on you. I'm going
Yeah,
to be little baby
I was
military
hoping to pull
on me.
that out of you.
And I'm gonna
It's good.
Sir, could I ask a question? This is me standing in front of all the little babies, and the question is, what should we aim for? Which part of the body should we aim for? And Mike, probably the reply in most cases of something like that would be first bullet in the center of mass and the second bullet in the center of the brain.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't get a balagan for this.
No, we're educating people as into how the Israeli military trains, which, by the way, this is how, as of probably about 30 years ago, this is how law enforcement in the United States trains.
Well,
center mass first.
And no, the problem is when somebody goes down, what do? I mean, what's the next thing that you do? And you see in the movies, they get close and they kick the weapon away. But how do you know he doesn't have a button? How do you know he doesn't have a...
See, but that's the difference between Israeli thinking and American thinking. American thinking is kick the gun away, put cuffs on them, and then it's over. Israeli thinking is, where's the trip switch?
Do you understand that somebody who's at this point has already agreed or come to terms or actually told his mom that he's about to die?
Every single time it's that way. Every single time it's that way. So there's a lot here.
The question is, how deep do we want to go into this one? But I think we have to think about a couple more things along the way.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this?
I think there are a lot of people we need to talk to.
Okay, let's take some questions. For those of you guys that have questions, put question right up front. I will take the super chats first as they come up, and then we'll take the other questions. By the way, oh, that's crazy. Dale just sent me a video of a bunch of residents of Gaza storming a Hamas warehouse, finding it stocked filled with food.
Mm-hmm. And complaining. And 5 of them were killed, by the way. 5 of them were shot.
By Hamas.
By Hamas.
Yeah. Whoo. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say about that. All right. So put question at the very front and then give us your question. And we'll look at I'll look at some of these super chats and we'll actually go from there. So let me refresh this and then we'll start taking some questions. David, keep an eye out as well because there might be some questions you might want to answer. Right. Oh my goodness, Brad. I have to read like a whole bunch of Brad things here. Okay, here we go. Let's do a couple. Brad, you say Gavin Newsom is trying to sound centrist now. Don't expect him to come out against drilling for oil. He needs massive amounts of petroleum for his hair care. Brad says, hey, Dean, see how bro James was sweating when he read that? That's how you do an That's how you do an opening super chat. That's hilarious, Brad. You are so hilarious. Next one, Brad says, 2 anti-Semitic acts of terror in the last few days. Notice how the DC story has disappeared in news cycles. Disgusting. You're right. You're right. I'm really proud of the fact, by the way, that the Trump administration brought that news story back into the cycle in the press briefing. Good for Carolyn. Very, very good for her. But that's a good point, Dean, or good point, Brad. Brad also says, VBS at our church this week. There is nothing more worthwhile than allowing yourself to be a vessel of God's love, pointing children to the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. Boy, is that true. Oh, my goodness. Boy, is that true. Enoch the boy, you say Zelensky has just proven he's not interested in peace. Darn straight. Mikey Sanchez, one of my dear brothers. I love Mikey with my whole heart. Love the fact that he goes to church. Haven't seen you around in a while, bro. I miss you. Bartjan, Pride Month? You mean Demon Month? You darn straight. It is Demon Month. That's for sure. It's so true. It's so true. That graphic still, I'll never forget that graphic that you guys gave me. It's the best thing in the world. Enoch DeBoy, you also say, James, most European leaders, France, UK especially, don't know what's best for themselves. Darn straight they don't. You're right. And then Brad, you say Zelensky thinks he can beat Russia and Tim Walz thinks he can be president. Talk about strong delusion. That's definitely strong delusion. And then Vindog, you say, get your National Jesus Flag Month on. Amen to that, bro. Amen.
Ugh.
Okay, are there questions you saw, David, that you want to answer?
Nothing, but I just want to add something.
Yep.
Greta Thunberg, remember?
Oh, yeah, she's a devil.
She's on the boat on the way to Gaza.
I know. You know what I want her to do?
I hope she makes it.
I want her to go to Gaza. I want her to go to Khan Yunis, and I just want her to wear her kafia. Just go through Khan Yunis, and you know what? Forget it. You know what, Greta? I would say this. I want you to just feel the environment a little bit. Get to know the Palestinian people. Go to Ramallah or Beit Lahem and wear your kafiyah.
Do you think Israel should let her through?
No. The problem is if they don't, then it's gonna be so much more like.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know, bro.
There's going to be a hole in the bottom of the boat somehow? Do you think that's going to happen?
Do they have a Mossad agent by the name of Biot? Or helicopter? Oh man. Okay. Let's look at some of these questions as they've come in. Let me see. Do I see any of them here? Okay. Oh, Justin. Okay, Justin asked this. Hey, James, do you know why the LGBT sections goes on sale before back to school?
Yeah. I'm already laughing because I know that one. Do you know why?
No, I don't want.
Ask him why. Ask him why.
Okay, why? Tell me, Justin. You have to text me back because I could get in trouble reading the answer to that one.
Yeah, no, you won't.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love that. Because pride cometh before the fall.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good, Justin.
Hey,
you win for that one, bro. That even beat out Brad Brunn. I think Justin beat out Brad on. I think he got the winning joke for the day, and it's actually not really a joke. That's why it's so funny. That pride comes before the fall.
You know what the best jokes are? The scary funny ones.
Darn straight.
Scary funny.
Yeah. Okay. Salvation Journey. You say, what do you think media feels, or what do you think the media feels any need to verify anything Hamas tells them? Well, look, it's spiritual. That's why they don't feel the need to verify it, because right now it's in vogue to embrace anything that's anti-Israel.
It's all about the likes.
That's what it is.
It's all about the likes. It just, I mean, whatever gets more likes, okay, is what's going to happen. There are very few people. President Trump was one of them. What was the guy in Poland who won the elections?
Yeah, that was another big one.
Or did you hear that the Dutch government just now, the government of the Netherlands just now fell apart? And that was after a right-wing conservative kind of player took the elections in the last elections. I don't know if you remember. I don't remember his name. But he tried to enact very strict policies about immigration. And he put together a coalition, and they didn't do what he said, and he took the government apart.
Oh, boy.
That was yesterday. So, again, things are happening.
We got an... Oh, man. Boy, you want to talk about how spiritual things are. Let me read this one to you. This is from Greg H. He says, I'm so sorry, James. I was walking around listening to this on headphones with my phone in my pocket. I removed phone from my pocket and saw that accidentally I had reported this video to YouTube. Poor Greg. Well, bro, if I get a strike, it'll be all your fault. No, I'm not going to make it that bad on you. Bro, accidents happen. There might be an undo option. I don't know. If you don't have that, then it's okay. Maybe YouTube will try to contact you and
find out what you mean.
yeah, and then just tell them, hey, I made a mistake. God bless you, bro. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening, man. We love you. Don't feel bad about that, bro. God bless you. Okay.
Somebody replied about the Dutch government. It's Geert Wilders.
Yes, that's right.
And we were all excited that he did get into power in the Netherlands and he was going to start pushing back against the immigration, but they didn't do it enough, and he walked out of the government yesterday.
It's so crazy. That to me is so crazy. The Dutch are in so much trouble. I mean, there's some of the things that are beginning to happen right now, especially in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's scary. You know who would give us a really good insight on that? My aunt comes from the Netherlands. One of these days I'll pick her brain about some of that stuff happening. But you know who else? We've got some watchers here from the Netherlands.
You have a Dutch aunt? I don't think.
Oh yeah,
I didn't
I
say
do.
that. Okay.
I do. Believe it or not, I do. I do. That's a whole. I'll have to tell you the story. I have to tell you the story about that. Yes.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
You have a Dutch aunt.
I'll talk about that with you offline. My Egyptian uncle married my Dutch aunt.
There you go.
That's quite a combination.
Yeah.
But they have produced some pretty wonderful children.
Well, we know where the food is better, but okay.
One is a doctor, one is an occupational therapist, or I think a speech language pathologist, and the other one is a software company, business guy, software company owner. Really brilliant kids.
Amazing.
And my Uncle John, by the way, who married the Dutch woman, is also an incredibly smart man. He's a doctor. He's also a Dr. Kaddis. And he has a really beautiful ministry in Najah Hamadi in Egypt, a clinic that he set up.
Najah Hamadi.
Najah Hamadi.
Where in Egypt?
Najah Hamadi. That's the area. So what he's doing over there is pretty amazing, by the way. Matter of fact, it's interesting. My grandfather had a church in Najah Hamadi. There's a lot of history there. Let's talk about that. Okay.
You're praying for us?
Yeah, we'll pray.
We're
I'll
done?
take one more question here.
All
because
right.
we have it. It seems the further we get into this, the more likely Israel will need to lean hard into an AI that can facilitate the Ezekiel 38 tranquility. Thoughts? Yeah, maybe. That may be one of the tools.
An AI created tranquility?
Yeah, meaning utilize AI. I'm not going to use the term to manipulate, but basically to communicate.
Okay.
I guess manipulate's probably the term. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep. Let's put it together.
Yeah, that's interesting. And this is a good point that Matt Anderson brings up. It is an interesting point. The most well-known thing to come out of the Netherlands is Anne Frank and Corrie ten Boom.
The most famous Dutch people today.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of very other famous. I mean, Van Gogh.
Truly, but I mean, you look at Corrie ten Boom and Anne Frank. You want to talk about remarkable, beautiful, wonderful people.
What else? I mean, what other Dutch names would you kind of bring up quickly?
I don't know.
Rembrandt?
Off the top of my head.
You know, people like that. Rembrandt would be one of them. Spinoza, Baruch Spinoza. That's a whole story.
Yeah, that's
we could connect to that if you wanted to do that. Woo.
Okay,
we're all over the place today, aren't we?
Yeah. You know, one of the most beautiful people that come out of the Netherlands would be Bartjan in our audience here.
There we go.
It's true. That's not a joke. It's true.
You know, the Dutch are the tallest people percentage-wise in the world.
Are they really?
I kind of heard that statistic a little while ago.
Are there any Dutch ball players in the NBA?
I don't know. That you've got me there.
Our live stream is degrading right now. Well, let me blow my nose here. Sorry.
We should start talking about the WNBA. Then it'll get worse.
Oh yeah. Well then our live audience will do what the WNBA's audience does and go to zero. Actually go to negative. Okay, let's pray. David, you want to do the honors, bro?
And Avinu Shabashamayim, this again is another critical week on your planet. Just we pray that your will be done on this crazy balagan earth as it is in heaven, and let all of this happen in the way that you know it's going to happen. We're so small and so insignificant to be able to understand this, but you have a plan laid out. We pray for the people who are suffering, from Russia to Ukraine to Israel to Gaza, and everywhere in between. We know that suffering and pain is not part of your plan, but as a result of us stepping off the path that you have given humankind down through the years. And we pray that more and more human beings will step back on this path to know you and to come to you through your Son, Jesus, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. We love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight. God bless you.
And hope to see you soon.
That's right.